Your great-great-grandfather was 17 years old when he came up from the Ohio River. Now, the word had gone out that some of the best land in the country was opening up in Indiana.
Early in the morning of your great-great-grandfather's wedding day, a neighbor saw him in his Sunday best. He was driving his courting horse, Charlie.
My great-grandmother said she'd often look out, and as far as she could see, there were prairie grasses and wildflowers just swaying in the wind. She said it was like the world was covered in a carpet of flowers.
Universal in nature, the stories of our ancestors seem to hold a certain spell on listeners, young or old alike. What is it we find so fascinating about the stories of our forefathers? Could it be because they tell us something about our own identity, who we are today? Or maybe we find them to be an inspiration. The circumstances and difficulties our ancestors overcame might be the encouragement we need to face our own challenges. Whatever the case, we all feel a need to pass on important traditions to the next generation.
I really think it's every generation's understanding of their past that prepares them for the future. The challenges and decisions of our ancestors are very much what shaped who we are today.
Every generation has to face difficult decisions. Understanding past decisions and their consequences will help our children make wiser choices for the future.
You can cry. A 75-year-old man can cry tears because that's where we lost our culture. And they didn't have a chance to pass it on.
And they didn't pass it on. How many of us have wished someone would have passed on just a glimpse of our past? To see, to touch, to understand. Often all we are left with are a few dusty old books. But all of that is about to change with the development of a new 300-acre cultural attraction situated on one of Indiana's most significant natural and historic sites. Corporations, foundations, individuals, the state of Indiana, and 23 Great Lakes Native American tribes from Indiana and across the country are joining together not just to preserve heritage, but to bring the past to life at the museums at Prophetstown. The Museums at Prophetstown is a huge public-private partnership. The Indiana General Assembly has authorized purchase of 2,700 acres to create a new park surrounding the museums at Prophetstown. Work has begun, and completion is expected in the year 2005.
In 1998, this site looked like any other Indiana soybean field. But then dramatic changes began to happen. Today, this is a premier example of a prairie. It's a community of warm and cool season grasses and wildflowers. And thanks to about 200 volunteer workers, we have the largest savanna prairie restoration in the state. And that's just the beginning, considering all the exciting things that are happening at the museums at Prophetstown. The summer of 2000 marks the completion of the Living History Farmhouse. All this has been made possible by corporations and foundations and over 2,000 museum members working together and generously contributing over $4.3 million, so you can see what exciting progress has been made.
Just as our ancestors did, we're working together to make the museums at Prophetstown a reality for future generations. What a partnership. Just northeast of Greater Lafayette, 4 educational facilities will be developed. Together, They will form one of the largest museum complexes in the Midwest. There simply will be nothing like it in the entire Great Lakes region.
Just behind those woods is the future home of the Campen Eagle Wing Visitor and Education Center and the Indiana Native Plant Tapestry. With these beautiful facilities and our location in a one-of-a-kind state park, we'll naturally attract hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. In addition, the museums at Prophetstown is located between Chicago and Indianapolis with direct access to Interstate 65, one of America's busiest highways. With 45% of America's population within a one-day's drive, studies have indicated that we will have 500,000 annual visitors, of which 150,000 will be school children, so you can see the importance of a well-designed visitors center. Ken Ryan, a prominent Native American architect, has designed the Campen Eagle Wing Center to provide exhibits about Native Americans, agriculture, and the environment, as well as an orientation theater, education suites for workshops and classes, and a food service area.
I grew up on an Indiana farm, and I remember working with both horses and early tractors, just like those you see around here. Our farm will interpret family farm life of the 1920s. As a child, I remember those days when technology brought great change. Farm families have never been the same since then, and I want my grandchildren to be able to come here and see and understand what all this change has meant.
Until the early part of the century, many Americans grew up on farms. Anyone who remembers that time remembers hard, back-breaking work. Then came the 1920s, often called the golden age of farming. The 1920s marked an end of a way of life that had lasted hundreds of years, even thousands of years. A revolution was coming, and it was coming fast. Machines like the tractor increased the farmer's output. Increased output allowed for expansion, and then with expansion came prosperity. This 1918 Sears and Roebuck farmhouse that was recently completed at the Living History Farm site is a prime example of the changes that were occurring. When you walk through, you'll notice there's no fireplace. You'll also see that there's a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright's architectural influence. It embraces new technology like a Delco battery system to power electric lights and running water, even an upstairs bathroom. No more trips to the outhouse on a cold January night. This truly was a modern house. Programs at the Living History Farm have already begun, and great progress has been made through the generosity of our donors and the enthusiasm of the community. But to keep the momentum going, there's still a lot of work to be done. The animals cannot be brought in until the barn and the outbuildings are built. At that point, children will not only be able to see where their food comes from, but to actually be able to participate hands-on in the process.
A lot of our country's values are rooted in our agricultural heritage. Yet only 3% of our population today have had the privilege of experiencing farm life. The Living History Farm will provide an exceptional opportunity to pass on a way of life that's gone forever.
The earliest settlers reported seeing thousands and thousands of acres of prairie grasses and wildflowers mixed with occasional stands of trees. They were living on the edge of two ecosystems, the thick forest to the east and the tallgrass prairies to the west. This unique transition zone formed a beautiful combination of trees and grasses known as the savanna. Unfortunately, very little remains today. Visitors will have a chance to see what 200 acres of native grasses, wildflowers, and virgin forest must have looked like 400 years ago. We also expect wildlife like deer and wild turkey to return. These areas are vitally important to our children and their children. Seeing it for themselves will help future generations understand how important caring for our environment really is.
Between the years 1808 and 1811, Tecumseh and his brother the Prophet governed a village near this spot. Their dream of a native confederacy and the preservation of native homelands was not to be. For in November 1811, Governor Harrison and his army destroyed that dream in a conflict that became known as the Battle of Tippecanoe. Since that time, a great deal of change has taken place. Some have interpreted this change as the end of their existence. Still others see it as a new direction, a direction that would challenge their ability to survive as Native people. The Woodland Native American Cultural Center, designed by Potawatomi architect Burke Wyatt, will play a significant role in interpreting Native American culture. The center will have 15,000 square feet of exhibits and a state-of-the-art education wing. The education wing will have classrooms and a distance learning center, allowing broadcast into homes and schools across America and throughout the world. Adjacent to the center, there will be 2 living history reconstructed villages. One will be similar to the 1810 Prophetstown Central Village, and the other a Middle Woodland pre-contact village of 1000 AD. All of the native tribes who participated at the original Prophetstown continue today as vibrant, living communities. The museums at Prophetstown will provide them a place to tell their story in their own words. We are excited to have this opportunity, for the only way we can affect change in the way Native people have been portrayed is to offer our visitors a more comprehensive perspective of our rich history.
The museums at Prophetstown have captured a superb vision for the future, a way to share our Native American, environmental, and agricultural heritage with all who visit this remarkable center for learning. I sincerely hope you will join me and Prophetstown's many partners in supporting this worthwhile project by making a gift, becoming members, or volunteering your time and service. The museums at Prophetstown provides each of us with an important opportunity to help in preserving 3 of our culture's most important components: Native American life, the natural environment, and family farm traditions. From the hearts of this generation to the hands of the next, we must make the Prophetstown vision a reality.
The museums at Prophetstown will be here for a long time, and not only my children and their children, but hopefully my great-grandchildren will be able to come out and visit this area and see what it was like for my great-great-grandparents when they came to Indiana.
Ben enjoys coming out here. He's been excited since he heard this was going to happen.
And it's always interesting to hear the stories from every generation, and sometimes the farther you go back, the more interesting it tends to get.
So we're recreating an ecosystem here as a sort of a tribute to the Native Americans, and I'm proud to be a part of that.
They're going to have long-distance learning facilities, maybe even have the opportunity to develop software here so that we can, again, take those back into our communities and make use of them at the community level. It's a tremendous resource. Not only a place to gather, but a place to gather to take things back as well.
It's historical, and it's educational, and it's just an all-around great project.
It's exciting.
Exciting, exactly.